Hi parents, thank you for getting all of your kids to ensemble this morning on time and excited for the year. This episode is for you guys to help you tune your instruments. So some of the parents I know are from students of mine who are actually pretty good with tuning. They at least have attempted it a couple of times. They might, do it when it's quite loose, but they may not be amazing at it, but that's fine. At least you attempt it. I'm going to show you a couple of ways on how to tune your instrument and also to start encouraging your child to tune or to play around with their instrument. Now, obviously, these pegs up here, I really avoid my students from touching the pegs. I just think they are a number one way of snapping a string. So if you want your child to learn how to tune strings, the area that I want you to focus on will be your tuning little pins right here, okay? The fine tuners on your instrument. You cannot tune. I've never snapped a string using these guys before, okay? They just get really tight. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways today on how to tune your instrument, or at least to start practicing tuning your instrument. Okay, in front of me I've got my keyboard, which I sometimes use to tune with. I do use a tuning app if I'm out and about and I don't have a keyboard or a piano near me. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways on starting tuning your instrument. First of all, most of the time, especially in maybe the winter sort of seasons, I find my fine tuners are really good because my viola or violin tends to not go out of tune so much, but weather really does affect the tuning of your instrument. So super simple rules are keep instruments out of cars. Unless you're traveling to school or back from school, they should never stay in a car overnight or for longer than half an hour. It's extremely dangerous for the instrument to be in a car, especially if it's insanely hot that day. You could risk having your instrument explode or at least snap a string. It's just not great for instruments. So keep them out of cars. I'm going to show you how I tune my A string, which is usually the first string we start with tuning. So I've got my keyboard here. I'm going to play an A. Now, if you don't have a keyboard at home or a piano, or at least a piano in tune, you can download some apps. And I've got, at the end of this blog, I've got a little photo of my apps page of some recommended apps downloads, but you can always ask your teacher what they might use. They may have different ones. Most of them are free, so you shouldn't have to pay for them. Some of you even might have a little tuner yourself. They're like a little black box, I guess. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to show you how to tune my A string. So I hear my A first. I start with plucking first, and you can hear it's really out of tune. So I guess for you guys, getting your ears to be trained is you want to listen to the A, play your string, and decide whether you are sharp or flat. Mine is definitely flat, so I need to actually use my peg up here to tune up to that A string. So what I want you to do is always start slow, never crank it straight away. It needs to be slowly done, and I find pushing in the peg as I turn upwards allows for my peg to not slip back down or even to snap. It just really slowly push it in and slowly turn up. If you push it in and crank it really fast, you run the risk of snapping a string, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to listen to my A again. I'm going to slowly push it in, and I just pluck as I turn it up so I can hear how far I've gotten to. Okay, that's pretty good. That's what I think would be in tune. The actual true way of knowing I'm completely in tune is if I get my bow and I play it, because sometimes the plucking doesn't allow me to truly hear what it sounds like. So once you think you've got it to the right place, make sure you pick up the bow and just start playing that A and really check to see if it's in tune. Okay, I'm just gonna get my bow. Okay, I've got my bow. I'm gonna listen to that A again. So it's actually a tiny bit sharp, so I'm going to wind it down just a little bit. That's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So what I did then was I wound my fine tuner, and I think about turning the volume down or turning the volume up with my fine tuners. So then I just turned it anti-clockwise, turning the volume down to match my A. Now this is some of the terminology or language you want to use with your kids. If they don't understand clockwise or anti-clockwise yet, you talk about turning the volume up or turning the volume down. It's the easiest way for them to remember. So that's how I tune my A. And I'm going to move across to my D string now and have a listen to that. So find my D. So once again, it is flat, so I need to wind my string up. So I'm going to do that really slowly. Pushing in and turning upwards. See it okay? Okay, I think I'm a bit sharp, but I'm going to use my fine tuner to tune back down to as close as I can to that D. So I'll get my bow. Was I wound it down to what I thought was the closest to my D, and then I actually played it against my A string, and that's a really good way to start listening to two strings at a time, because sometimes as I tune my Ds or my lower strings, it may affect my upper string, my higher A string, because the pegs might slip a little bit, depending on what's happening up here, whether the pegs sort of touch each other, the strings sort of slightly touch each other. They tend to wind down as well. So you might find that at first it's a little fiddly, trying to get those two strings. Try not to tune one string at a time and then just not check them again, because sometimes those other strings will slip or they might go a little sharper. So you've got to actually start rechecking. It's almost like you do a string and you do the next one and then check the string you just did before to make sure that that also stayed in tune. Okay, it's sounding pretty good to me. Okay, my G's next, so I'm going to do my G now. So once again, it's flat. I'm actually going to show you what happens if it's too sharp, so you just wind it back down. So I'm going to go up too high. Okay, that's like way too high, so I'm just going to wind my peg back down towards me. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Now, I don't have fine tuners on my C or G string, so I'm pretty good with figuring out, how to adjust my pegs so that they match. But I'm pretty sure most of your kids should have 4 fine tuners on their strings. Another really good way to get your kids involved in the tuning process is if you guys start with the pegs, if it's really drastically out of tune, start with the pegs and ask your son or daughter whether they think it's too high or too low, and then maybe get them to start using the fine tuners with you. All tuning must be supervised. You will have tears and broken strings if you don't supervise it. It's just important for the care of your instrument. But I wholeheartedly encourage all students to give tuning a go. Once you get up to concert strings, we still tune your strings, but myself and Mike are really aiming to get the kids to think separately and to able to tune their instruments. And a lot of my senior students are tuning their instruments by themselves. So yeah, and it also really helps with their ear training as well, to listen to whether they're in tune or whether they're out of tune. So I'd like you all to give tuning a go this week. If you have any dramas, please feel free to contact me. If you break a string, don't freak out. We can replace them. Just go really easy with your tuning pegs. If your tuning peg is too tight and you can't move it, there are some methods or ways. There's peg paste that's out there. It allows for the pegs to really stick into there so they don't slip. Or if they're too tense and they're really, really tight, try not to force the peg, because sometimes you can snap the pegs. If that's an issue, please see your teacher. They will give you some better advice about that. Your instrument might need a service. So I'd like you to all give it a go this week. I really am aiming for parents to tune instruments prior to ensemble on Mondays. If there are any issues at all, or the kid rocks up to their ensemble and their violin is completely out of tune, even though you had tuned it the night before, don't stress. I am happy still to tune your instrument. Hopefully we can just get less and less students needing their instruments tuned. All right, I wish you all the best. Contact me if you need any help. I'll see you all next week. Good luck.